unfortunately, they're not designed for business payments. The average business transaction size is around 9,300 something. And the limits that are on these platforms are usually maybe 2,000, if you're lucky, maybe 5.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Awesome Inc.'s podcast, where we highlight people pursuing their definition of, you guessed it, awesome. So buckle up and get ready for some more success story adventures and failures from Kentucky's tech and entrepreneur community. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into this episode of Awesome Inc.'s podcast. Again, I got to keep the trend up. I'm excited for this conversation today. So first and foremost, like and follow our podcast, subscribe to wherever you listen to stuff, so that way you can keep up with the most recent episodes. And today, I'm sitting down, holding my nice cup of black coffee with my good friend Raffi from Louisville, Kentucky. He has been an avid Fibercross attendee and has pitched at the competitions a handful of times, has had a lot of success, and he is one of our Fellowship Fall 2021 cohort companies. That's a mouthful. Yeah, we're gonna scratch that. But Raffi's in the fellowship. He's awesome. I can't wait for you to hear his story and let you know how he's conquering life. So Raffi, that's it for me. I'm going to shut up. Why don't you introduce yourself, give the people tuning in a bit of your personal and professional background, let them get to meet you and know the human side of you, not just the cool startup founder side of you.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Borderless. We are a global payments company located in Louisville, Kentucky. We're enabling payouts to over 100 countries. So a little bit about myself. I actually was born and raised in Lebanon. I moved here to the United States for college. I went to Penn State University and majored in architectural engineering. So it has nothing related to tech, nothing related to payments. So I've got an interesting journey to where I am today. After college, I worked in Philly for a few years, and then moved to New York City. That's where I spent most of my time. And that's really when I switched my career to becoming a full-time entrepreneur as well as a payments expert.
I love it. Raffi, I'm going to start this episode off a little rocky. I'm a Buckeye fan, so go Bucks. I know the game last weekend was pretty fun.
It was, absolutely. Oh, man.
Well, I had family that played sports at Ohio State, so wrestling and swam. So I have some actual allegiance there, even though I went to UK. But I love Big Ten football. So just wanted to throw that in there. Also, you're from Lebanon. Let me ask you this. What is your favorite Lebanese food?
Oh, man, I have a lot, but probably I would say kibbeh is my favorite. It's like this meat dish. It's like deep fried and you can eat it with hummus. It's really delicious.
Can we get together and have some Lebanese food?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I actually mean that. Mediterranean food is my favorite type of food. So if you're listening
awesome.
And if you get me some anything, shawarma, falafel, anything, I love it. All right. So yeah, that's great to hear. I love a little bit of the human side of you. Like you mentioned, you're the CEO of Borderless. I know I have a bit of experience. Maybe some of the listeners do. Can you explain what your software is up front? We're gonna talk about the elephant in the room. I want people to know about your company, and we'll continue to go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the quick and dirty version of it is, in short, we're like a PayPal 2.0. That's kind of what Borderless is and where we're going. Another way to really describe it is we're a global Venmo for businesses and individual. At the core of it, our software, we're a global payments company. We enable payouts to over 100 countries in local bank transfer in local currencies. So we're able to avoid international bank wire fees and the terrible exchange rates that come with it. So we work with companies of all sizes, small business, from one person to an online marketplace, to startups, to enterprises, enabling them to pay vendors, suppliers, freelancers for as low as $1 per payment. And our software enables them to have custom onboarding flows, avoid some data liability issues that comes with international payments, like collecting sensitive banking information, using our proprietary handle system. We give them real-time payment tracking, something, bank payments are very difficult to do. And we also do multi-currency balances. So we have a lot of services that can simplify any cross-border payments for people.
Yo, that is so cool. I am personally just starting to get into a little international travel. I did once or twice in college. I have the last year a little bit. And I know for you, this has stemmed from some of your international travel. So would you mind, talk a little bit about your experience? Because I know you traveled a bit, you've had some pains with moving money across borders, and you realized I'm not the only person who experiences this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lived in about 4 different continents. I traveled around the world. And so moving money across these borders, these countries have been super tedious and difficult and expensive. So obviously, like everyone that experienced a personal pain, they looked for solutions. And when I went and looked for solutions at the time, back in 2013, 14, and honestly just kept on looking, I realized that there are solutions for people, but not for businesses. And that's really when I dove into the space for businesses and realized that, oh, actually, the payment process starts with the business. For example, if you walk into an ice cream shop in Lexington and they only take cash, but you just carrying your credit card, you're not going to walk away with an ice cream, unless you go and get some cash. And so the business tends to sometimes force a certain method of payment. And essentially, that's kind of where a lot of this innovation that we're going through is stemming from, is how do we make the process for businesses simpler, but also keeping in mind the individual at the other part, or, at the other side of the party.
Super cool. And to clarify, borderless is a B2B product and service versus a B2C?
Yeah, great question. So we're actually B2B, but our software enables companies to pay individuals and get paid from individuals. So it's not just B2B, business to business, but for example, let's just take a company in Lexington wants to pay out freelancers. Maybe they match people with some service providers in the area or around the world. They want to pay them. And these could be let's call them freelancers, plumbers, mentors, whatever the service may be that they're going to provide. Then that online marketplace or business can utilize the borderless API to pay them very easily.
Super cool. Again, a lot of this is already, over my head, but I love it. So you mentioned this a second ago. Again, I'm going to publicly announce I am a noob with some of this financial stuff. So you mentioned a payment method, and compared to other methods like cash and credit cards and checks, you guys are built online and direct. What are some of the hassles that come with international currency exchanges with using, a credit card or debit card or cash checks? What's some of the pain points that this service is relieving people of?
Yeah, great question. So, actually, when you swipe your card at a grocery store or anywhere, the grocery store, that business is actually paying about 2.5 to 3 point something percent on that transaction. It's the cost of doing business, and sometimes they just mark up the prices to cover that cost, so the consumer ends up paying for it without them knowing that they're doing that. So when it comes to international, it's even more expensive because the rates go up between 3 to 5%, and then they also charge a foreign exchange rate that is marked up versus the actual real or interbank exchange rate. And same when you're sending money as a business or as an individual to a vendor overseas to import something, for example, or to send money to friends and family, you're paying a bank wire fee. It's delayed. It takes about 3 to 5 business days. The exchange rate is terrible, and so some of the complexities that go along with that is because, one, the system that's currently in place is pretty outdated. It was created in the 1970s. This what's called the SWIFT system. There are newer methods to do that. And one of the things that we've been doing is actually creating a new infrastructure where essentially what we do is we connect local payment rails. And what I mean by local payment rails is like the ACH in the United States, the automatic clearinghouse. There are other countries that have the same. For example, in the United Kingdom, it's called BACS. In Canada, it's called PAD. And those systems don't communicate with each other, but they're actually the most efficient way to send money within that country. So borderless actually at its core is connecting those local payment rails around the world together under one system. So when you want to send money abroad, we are actually then delivering the funds using that local payment rail, avoiding international wire fees, avoiding terrible exchange rates, and we're able to save people money, deliver the payment faster, track payments. So we're able to alleviate a lot of the pains that are associated with international payments.
Raffi, this is totally off the question. I'm getting a bit enamored just listening to your voice. Do you do any voice acting work? You're so easy to listen to. That's great. Also, I didn't know what the letters, acronym, whatever, ACH stood for. So thanks for clarifying that. I'd never just thought to type that into Google. But whenever I get a Venmo, that I bank through PNC, when it goes to that, you have the ACH and all the information. So that's good to know. Cool. So that being said, Raffi, we'll continue rocking and rolling, and want to know what makes your product stand apart from any competition that you have seen in the financial international currency exchange, whatever taboo word I can throw in there, topic, because that's where you operate.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of innovation in this space. My favorite question that we always get is, well, how do you compare versus Wise or TransferWise versus Revolut? How do you compare versus Venmo or Zelle? So I'll start it out at the top level. So starting out with Zelle and Venmo and Cash App and some of the apps that are consumers very utilize here and love very much. I mean, I'm a Venmo user. I love it. It makes sending money so much easier inside the US. But that's the point. It's only inside the United States. These services do not exist outside. And so when you want to try to send money outside, then you turn to some other platforms like maybe Wise or Revolut. All these platforms, what they have in common is, one, they've made it super easy. Two, they've made it affordable. And three, they're just focused on the individual. Unfortunately, they're not designed for business payments. The average business transaction size is around 9,300 something. And the limits that are on these platforms are usually maybe 2,000, if you're lucky, maybe 5. And they're also not designed for, bulk payouts, basically mass payments, doing multiple payments in one go, accounting integration, involving a lot of colleagues in the same account, so user management. And so there's a lot of things that go into running a business that these platforms are either just getting into it, they've tried to change their system to adapt to it, or don't have it. And so this is kind of where borderless comes in. We innovate in that space, and we start to compare ourselves to, for example, the Payoneers, the PayPal, the maybe Stripe, and where we kind of stand out from those competitors. I would say it's coverage, local yet global infrastructure, our handle system, and pricing. And I'll start with the first one, coverage. We make payouts to over 100 countries across the world and in over 50 currencies, and we're expanding that every single day. By the time people listen to this, we're probably going to be in more countries. That's actually more coverage than Stripe. Stripe's been around for over 10 years now. They're $95 billion company. It's not their core, business that they're doing. And this is kind of where borderless solves it. We know this problem very well. We know what companies are trying to do. And we're expanding, one API, for example, to reach all those countries and reach all the freelancers, so you can avoid integrating multiple. But we know that people love Stripe. People love to collect via credit cards. And so what we created is a connection between Stripe and Borderless or other payment platforms, card systems, that then you can connect Borderless for payouts and then use them, Stripe and whatever, for collections. Our infrastructure, I think I've touched on this, what's unique about us is collecting these local payment rails. That's what we do. And then we innovate in actually targeting within that country, how can we get the payments even faster? Accessing what we call real-time bank payments, where we can deliver payments to your bank account in under 30 minutes. And so that's kind of what we're focused on. And that's kind of some of the cool things that are coming with Borderless, and eventually maybe even delivering to a mobile wallet. Maybe someday, whenever people want to pay to the United States, they can pay straight to your Venmo balance, for example, somewhere where you automatically already love, and maybe that's the best way for you to get paid. And then finally, I talk about our handle system. That's super unique. You can actually pay out people without collecting their banking information straight to their bank by using this handle system. It's like a Twitter or Instagram handle. You essentially say, hey, my handle is at Garrett or at Raffi. And you could be located in India. I could be located in Australia. And we both, are part of this freelancing company in the United States, doing our own things. And then if we want to get paid, all we need to do is just share that handle. They don't need to collect our banking information. They don't need to worry about that. So it reduces data liability, especially in a world where cybersecurity is super important. And that's something very unique about us. Obviously, we give them the ability to just pay anyone, even if they're not a Borderless user. You can just enter their banking information manually in our system, create a contact, and pay them. So we make it super easy for businesses of all sizes, depending on their needs. And then finally, pricing, I think we're super competitive in that because of our infrastructure. It's not because we want to undercut the market, it's because we're able to tap into those really local payment systems that are super efficient, super affordable, and we pass on those savings to our customers.
One of the things I got from that, other than all the wisdom I now know, is I could potentially have the first @Garrett handle for Borderless if I get it today.
I don't know. Maybe not. Go for it.
Man, I think this is so fascinating because this again is probably an area where most people have never thought of, but I do know from the little I've traveled how freaking frustrating dealing with money can be when you're in another country, and especially when you don't know another language. So it's cool to see how you are able to solve that pain point, but also, like you just mentioned the example, if one of us was in Australia, fun fact, I wish I was an Australian mate. Or, if you were in India, Pakistan, somewhere on the other side of the world, that we could also do business that way. Again, super cool. And you mentioned the limit that Venmo has. I think it's what, $5,000? And if you have a certain threshold, it might be 10. So the fact that you guys are able to get past that, man, that's great stuff. One thing that we've thrown the word country around a couple of times. I want to hear more about your roots. So you came from Lebanon. How the heck did you end up in the States? Where did you start initially, and what brought you down to Kentucky?
So my family used to live in the U.S. They then moved to Lebanon. That's where I was born and raised. So I always had this, U.S. connection. And so when I actually wanted to go to college, there are a few universities that I had in mind, and then I applied and got accepted and moved here. And that's where I went to Penn State. And then after that, I lived in Philly for a bit and then moved to New York. Really, New York has been kind of where I've lived most of my life here in the US. And we realized for Borderless that New York was not kind of the sustainable ecosystem that we want for our business. It was great to get started. The ecosystem there is amazing. You can get so many connections. You can find really good talent. But as far as kind of having longevity, impact, and community, I think there are other areas in the United States that will be better for that. So that's why we started to look outside of Louisville, outside of New York City, and we ended up in Louisville. And then so we came here, and it's been great ever since. And I think we got a little bit lucky because we actually moved before the pandemic, and I can't imagine being in New York City during the pandemic.
Brother, let me tell you. Well, I said brother. That's funny. So my brother, he is a PhD, works for Google, super smart guy. And he moved from Atlanta because he went to Georgia Tech up to Brooklyn to work with Google and like in the city. I forget which office specifically, like Chelsea maybe. And moved there February 2020. New York is where everything happened, unfortunately. So he moved to a new city and like 2 weeks later was isolated in his, like 600, 700 foot apartment for 4 months, then moved back to Kentucky and called my parents. Was like, guys, I'm going crazy. I just need to be around people, so I can't
imagine.
Yeah. I ended up going to New York back in the spring of 2021. So this year with my dad and my brother, road trip over the weekend, got all the stuff and drove back down. And crazy to say the least. So super cool that you guys were able to avoid that situation. One of my favorite things I like to talk with founders about is failure and success. Hit me with one of your worst failures. Could be from a hiring standpoint, like a business conversation, or just a bonehead decision that in hindsight you're like, why did I make that? And then hit me with success. What's something that you are really excited about that's happened within the last year?
Man, yeah, you mentioned hiring. Hiring is one of the biggest pain points for startups that probably people will face. If you hire right, it's great for your business, and if you hire wrong, it's detrimental. We just had a terrible hiring experience. We hired someone we're excited about for sales development, and they started, and literally within the first week, we realized that they actually were doing kind of this double job thing during the remotely, because we're a remote company, and we quickly had to fire them, and so that actually was pretty eye-opening, because I've never had that. I've heard about it, read about it, but to experience it is something very different.
So again, to clarify, double job. This person got hired onto borderless and already worked another job full time.
That's correct. Yes, they had 2 full-time jobs. Yeah,
that's pretty savvy. I got to be honest. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That person must have a lot of time. Man, that's funny. So yeah, with that, what's success that you guys have experienced in the last year that got a fist bump and we're so glad this happened for our business?
Yeah. There's actually a few this past year. We won Fintech Startup of the Year at the Fintech Awards. So we're Startup of the Year officially now under the Fintech Awards for 2021. So that was a huge success for us because it compared us against, hundreds of startups, but also bigger entities, not just, quote unquote startups. So they actually have like 10 times more funding, 10 times more the staff, yet we were still able to come out on top with our success and innovation. That was huge for us this year. And one other thing is we actually tripled our cross-border volume over the past 2 quarters. And so we're super excited about that as well.
Congratulations on the FinTech Award. That's no easy accomplishment. So really stoked for you guys. Hopefully you have some cool trophy you get to mount, or a nice plaque, stuff that you always get to remember that success. So Raffi, one of my favorite things again is you are a startup Kentucky. I said startup Kentucky. You're a startup company. There we go. In Kentucky. And so many people have the notion Kentucky is a bunch of barefoot hillbillies who only care about basketball and bourbon and horse racing. Promise we're more than that. And you are a part of an accelerator program in our state called the Fellowship. What is something that you are hoping to accomplish with your business, Borderless, over the next year being a part of the Fellowship?
Yeah, I think Awesome Inc.'s Fellowship is actually an amazing program. They're able to connect you with people in Lexington, but also beyond in the Midwest. And that's one of the things that we're looking to accomplish is one, we're looking to get connected with startups, with people that can either be our brand ambassador, be our customer, be our advisors, strategic intros, anything that can really take Borderless to the next level. Our goal is to expand our customer base by 10x, throughout this year. And so we're really looking for the fellowship to kind of help us in that as well.
Man, thanks for sharing that, Keith. You got a shout out. Don't let it go to your head. But yeah, again, I love the perspective, and so much fun in business comes from the people you meet and you do life with. So glad that you see value that with the fellowship program. And then Raffi, we're going to wrap up here. Last thing, and this is something I always like. I am an avid tips, tricks, shortcuts kind of guy for every aspect of life. If you can tell me how to automate my morning routine, I might take you up on it. So do you have anything that makes you stand apart from other entrepreneurs you know? Any quirk, habit, routine, whatever?
So I think one thing I do before going to bed and right when I wake up. So I completely decompress before going to bed. So whatever that is to you, to me, sometimes that's, reading some news, reading some funny memes, watching, whatever it is. But for me, it's actually, I utilize Imgur a lot. And so I decompress using that. And in the morning, when you wake up, one of the things that you should not do is look at your screen or phone, at least for the first 15 minutes when you first wake up. That will help you get energized for the next, for the full day. So you're not waking up and just looking at blue light. And I think that's one of the things that helps me.
That's great. Stay away from blue light, folks. Raffi, appreciate the time. Appreciate the laughs. Really excited for what Borderless is going to accomplish over the next year, both a part of the fellowship program and also, hopefully some more fintech awards. So, man, great conversation. I'm glad we finally got to connect over a podcast. And actually, the most important question, how can people support your business?
Be customers or spread the word. That's kind of the number one. If you're a startup in the freelancer, gig economy, influencer, online marketplace, and you're looking for a payout solution, come to Borderless. We'll set you up.
Love it. Raffi, thanks for the time, man.
All right. Thanks, Garrett. I really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Awesomings Podcast. And another quick thank you to Lee Rosevear and a few members from our community who provide the music that you hear in this show. Lastly, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, all that jazz. Or even better, come on down to our space. Come be a part of our community and get plugged in, and let's start something awesome together. You guys rock. We'll see you next time.